Captain Carter's survey ship settled onto the red sands of Taralis V just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The landing team stepped onto the brittle earth in silence. Each footprint left a cloud of dust that glowed faintly in the ships. Floodlights. The red wind stirred memories of storms long ago, but tonight it felt strangely calm, as if the planet itself waited for something. As the team moved inland, they spotted a small hut built into the side of a rocky outcrop. It looked almost forgotten, half buried by shifting sands. Lieutenant Han paused and scanned the structure with her scanner. Life signs registered faint but clear, 3 individuals. She motioned to the others and they drew closer, weapons lowered but ready. Nobody spoke. The dusty air made every breath deliberate. Inside the hut, a pale-skinned alien woman knelt beside 2 young children. Her silver hair fell around her shoulders like a soft curtain. Her eyes, large and dark, shone with fear. The children, a boy and a girl, sat cross-legged on woven mats. They watched the humans with polite curiosity. The woman held her hands out in a gesture of peace. Her voice trembled but clear. "I am Urina of the Valorous clan," she said. Her voice had a musical quality. "My husband died many suns ago defending our home. The war took everything. Now only me and my children remain." She bowed her head. The boy and girl mimicked her, lowering their heads. Carter felt a tug at his chest. Something in her tone spoke of pain and hope. "We come in peace," Carter said softly, stepping forward. His helmet reflected the soft glow of the hut's single lantern. "We seek only minerals. We mean no harm." He knelt to be level with Urina. The children glanced at him, then slipped closer. The girl reached out and touched Carter's gloved hand. Her touch was gentle, like a breeze. Yarina wiped a tear from her cheek. "Please," she whispered, "my children are well behaved. They know to respect guests. I can warm your bed and tend your needs. I offer our home in exchange for safe passage off this world." Her words carried a plea that sank into Carter's mind. He glanced at his crew. They exchanged uncertain looks. Lieutenant Han raised an eyebrow. "We can offer shelter aboard," she said, "but you must come with us to our ship." Urina nodded quickly. She rose and guided the children outside. The red wind rustled her tunic. Carter studied her calm strength. Despite her loss, she stood tall, determined to protect her children. Back aboard the ship, the crew prepared quarters in the lower decks. Urina watched as engineers cleared space and set up simple beds. The children's eyes shone at the sight of bright screens and soft carpets. The girl giggled when a small cleaning drone hovered near her. The boy pointed at its rotating arms and laughed, a sound that brightened the dim corridor. Later, in the mess hall, Carter offered Urina and her children food. The alien cuisine she carried smelled of spices Carter had never known. She smiled and shared her rations. The children ate politely, offering small bites to their mother before themselves. Carter felt a warmth in the gesture, a bond forming between species. That night, Carter stood on the deck overlooking the endless dunes. The stars stretched across the black sky. He thought of Urina's plea and her children's polite eyes. He realized that sometimes the greatest discoveries were not of minerals or machines, but of friendship and trust. Taralis V had given him more than a survey result. It had given him a chance to rewrite a sorrowful story into one of hope. As the ship drifted to sleep, Urina tucked her children into their bunks. She whispered words in her native tongue, her hands gentle on their foreheads. The children closed, their eyes secure for the first time in many suns. Urina turned to the small porthole and looked out at the stars. She breathed deeply and whispered, "Thank you, human." The hush of the ship carried her words into the night. Yari now woke, early to the low hum of the ship's engines. The corridor lights were dim, but she recognized every panel and vent from the hours she had spent caring for her children here. She led them by the hand down to the cargo bay, where Captain Carter and Lieutenant Han waited beside a holomap table. The map showed the red dunes of Taralis V with markers from yesterday's mineral scans. Beneath one marker, a cluster of readings hinted at underground anomalies. Carter looked up from the holomap when Urina and her children arrived. We plan to send a probe down here, he said, pointing to a spot near the old riverbed. But we need someone who knows this land, he gestured to Urena. We'd be honored if you guide us. Urena glanced at her children. They stood close, their small faces bright with curiosity. She nodded. I know this region, she said. My clan once lived near that river. We buried our machines there when the war came. She traced the faded lines on the map with her finger. The machines sleep beneath the sand. They can still awaken if disturbed. Lieutenant Han frowned. What kind of machines? She asked. War engines, Urena replied softly. They are weapons. When my people retreated, we hid them to protect others. We hoped no one would find them. She met Carter's gaze. We must be careful. The team suited up and assembled near the ship's landing ramp. The children stood behind a glass wall with Han, watching the humans prepare. The girl tugged at Han's uniform. Is it safe? She whispered. Han knelt. We're very careful, she said. Your mother knows the way. You'll be safe here. The girl nodded and returned her gaze to the ramp as Urena led the landing party into the fading dawn. The red wind whispered across the dunes. The probe they carried sparkled with sensors and cables. It rolled smoothly over the sand, following Urena's guidance. After a few minutes, the probe reached the target zone. Urena knelt and touched the sand. Beneath this layer, she said, the Earth holds the machines. She triggered a marker on the probe. It began to drill a narrow shaft into the sand. Carter watched the progress bar on his display as the drill reached deeper layers of rock. Suddenly, the probe jolted. Its lights flickered. Obstacle detected, the onboard announced. Yari na single quotes S brow furrowed. That is the shell of a war engine, she said. It blocks the shaft. Carter activated the probe's cutter. Sparks flew as the blade carved into a curved metal surface. The team held their breath. With a final whir, the cutter broke through. The probe tumbled into darkness. We've breached it, Han said. Prepare to send the remote camera. The camera descended, its lights illuminating a chamber inside the hull of a massive machine. The walls curved around the lens like the inside of a shell. Cables and hydraulics stared back in silence. Urena's eyes glistened. She placed a hand on the probe's housing. This was my clan's greatest weapon, she whispered. It could level mountains. We buried it to end the war. Carter studied the image. We need to secure it, he said. If it reactivates, it could destroy this ship. He tapped commands into his datapad. We'll install a lockdown protocol. While Han set up the protocol, Urena scanned the chamber. Her fingers traced ancient etchings on the metal. She read aloud the symbols in her language. These lines bind the engine, she said. They need energy to work. Han looked at Carter. Does she know how to power it down permanently? Urena nodded. Yes, but I need to enter the chamber. She glanced at the probe. I can guide you, but you must trust me. Carter hesitated. The chamber could be dangerous. But he saw the determination in Urena's eyes. We trust you, he said. They opened the shaft wide enough for Urena to fit through. She crouched and slipped inside. The team watched on their displays as she moved within the engine's hull. The children pressed their faces to the glass, watching their mother's silhouette. Inside, Urena found the energy core. It glowed faintly, a dull ember of power. She placed her hands on the core and spoke words of her tongue. The ember dimmed. Sparks faded. The core went dark. Outside, the team cheered softly. Han closed the lockdown protocol. Engine secured, she said. Yri now emerged, her tunic dusty but her face calm. The children ran to her and hugged her legs. You are brave, the boy said in his small voice. Yari now lifted him and kissed his forehead. I do this for you, she whispered. As they returned to the ship, Carter watched them. He realized that Urena's plea was never about warming a bed, but about protecting her children and forging a new path. The red dunes had revealed an ancient power and a mother's love that could tame it. Together they walked back into the ship, ready for whatever the next dawn might bring. Yari na woke to the soft hum of the ship entering orbit around a new world. She stepped into the corridor with her children trailing behind. Captain Carter met them at the airlock, his face lit by the pale glow of the planet below. "We detected unusual readings here," he said. "We thought you'd like to see." The children peered out a viewport at the blue-green planet. Forests rolled beneath. Fluffy clouds. Rivers wound through valleys like silver ribbons. Urena smiled, her heart light at seeing her children's eyes widen in wonder. She led them into the airlock and donned a light suit. The children giggled as Hen helped them with their helmets. Together they stepped onto the moon-like base that orbited the planet. Inside the base's lab, engineers pointed to a map filled with glowing dots. "These are energy signatures," Han explained. "We believe an ancient archive lies beneath this surface." Carter turned to Urena. "Your clan once collected knowledge," he said. "Do you think your people left clues here?" Urena traced the dots with her finger. She felt a faint memory stir. "Long ago," she said, "my ancestors searched for a place to hide our wisdom. They feared losing it in war. They built secret vaults on distant moons." She placed her palm on the table. "This is one of them." The team prepared a small shuttle. Urena sat between her children, holding their hands. Carter climbed in with Han and 2 engineers. The shuttle shuddered and broke through the base. Hull then fell through the atmosphere in a silent glide. Outside, the world rushed past in green and blue. They landed in a clearing surrounded by tall trees. Sunlight filtered through leaves, painting the ground in dappled shadows. The shuttle's doors opened, and a fresh breeze carried scents of moss and flowers. The children ran to gather fallen petals. Urena smiled. She had not seen such forests since her own world's skies turned red in war. Han led the group down a narrow path. The engineers carried a scanning device. It pulsed with each step, growing louder as they neared a rocky hill. Jagged stones rose like teeth from the earth. At the hill's base, a metal door lay half buried in vines. Symbols etched on it glowed faintly as Urena approached. "This symbol means memory," Urena said. She pressed her hand to the metal. The glyphs shifted as if alive. She spoke a word in her tongue. The door's glow brightened and the vines recoiled. With a rumble, the door slid into the hill. Beyond lay a dark tunnel sloping down. The team switched on lights and entered. The walls were carved with reliefs, scenes of scholars reading scrolls, of teachers and children learning. The children gasped and pointed. Urena knelt beside them. "These are our stories," she said softly, "our greatest lessons. My people preserved knowledge so we would never forget who we are." Deeper into the tunnel, water dripped from unseen cracks. The floor sloped steeply. Han's scanner beeped. "The archive is ahead," she said. They reached a wide chamber lined with metal cabinets. Each cabinet held glowing crystals. The crystals pulsed like hearts, each storing a memory and light. An engineer approached a pedestal at the center. It held a single crystal, larger than the rest. Its light was gentle green. Han read her display. "This is the core archive," she said. "It contains centuries of history." She stepped back. "We need to secure it." Just then, alarms blared. The ship's AI crackled over comms. "Unknown vessel approaching." Carter frowned. "Pirates," he muttered. "They must have followed us from the base." He placed a hand on Han's shoulder. "Get that crystal. We must move fast." Urena gathered her children close. "Stay here," she whispered. "I will protect you." The girl's eyes filled. With tears, "I want to help," she said. Urena knelt and hugged her. "You already do, my little star." Han and the engineers carefully lifted the crystal and placed it in a secure case. The engineers strapped it to their belts. Outside the chamber, distant echoes, thudded footsteps, and low shouts. Carter motioned to Han. "We go up," he said. "Urena, cover our exit." They retraced their path. At the door, Urena spoke. The unlocking word. The door opened, and Han and the engineers dashed into the clearing. Carter took position at the shuttle's ramp. Urena stood between her children and the approaching threat. A group of dark-clad figures emerged from the trees, weapons raised. Carter opened fire with stun rounds, the beams flashing among trunks. Urena raised her hands and spoke words in her language. A barrier of shimmering light surrounded them. The children huddled, eyes wide. The pirates paused, surprised by the barrier. One fired, but the shot fizzled against the light. Urena stepped forward, her voice firm. "Leave us," she said in broken common. "These memories belong to all who seek knowledge," the pirate leader snarled. "Valuable tech," he growled. "Hand over the crystal or your barrier falls." Carter stepped beside Urena. "You will get nothing," he said. "We come in peace." His voice echoed in the clearing dot for a tense moment. Pirate boots crunched leaves. Then the leader signaled retreat. The group melted back into the forest. Carter lowered his weapon. Han checked the barrier controls. "It holds," she said. Yarina exhaled and lifted her children. "Come," she said. They climbed aboard the shuttle carrying the archive crystal. Carter locked the doors. The shuttle rose, engines roaring. Behind them, the clearing fell silent. Inside had admired the crystal case. "We did it," she said. Carter looked at Urena. "Thanks to you," he said. Urena smiled tiredly. "I only did what a mother must," she replied. Her children sat quietly, their faces full of awe. ChatGPT said. Urena woke to the low rumble of the shuttle's engines slowing as it neared the survey ship. She held her daughter's hand and helped her brother float in the narrow cabin. "Captain." Carter stood by the hatch, ready to receive them. Han and two engineers followed, carrying the secured crystal case. The hatch opened, and Urena led her children out into the docking bay. Inside, the cargo bay lights glowed softly. Engineers gathered around the crystal. They placed it on a reinforced table and connected data cables. The crystal's gentle green pulse filled the bay with a calm light. Urena watched as the engineers began to read its data. Her children peered at the glowing stone, their eyes reflecting its soft hue. Carter approached. "You did well," he said. "This archive will teach us much." Urena nodded. "Knowledge must be shared," she replied. Han adjusted her scanner. "We will upload this to the ship's database," she said. The data flowed through the cables, filling the ship's systems with ancient memories. In the command center, scientists gathered around a holographic display. The archive projected images of star maps, ancient technology, and records of fallen worlds. One scientist touched a map of the galaxy. "Look here," he said. "These markers match the locations of other hidden vaults." Urena leaned forward. She studied the map, remembering her mother's stories. "My people placed vaults on 5 moons," she said. "Each holds a crystal like this." Carter leaned back in his chair. "We must visit them," he said. "This knowledge can help us build peace." Urena smiled gently. She felt hope growing. Her children hovered at the doorway. The boy asked, "Will we see more places like the forest world?" Urena bent down. "Yes," she said. "We will travel and learn." Below deck, Han monitored the ship's scanners. On her screen, she saw a faint signal approaching. "Captain," she said. "Pirate ship is closing in." Carter rose. "Prepare defenses," he ordered. Engineers ran to activate shields and secure airlocks. Urena guided her children to a safe room. They huddled on a bench as the ship's hull shook. In the command center, Carter watched the tactical display. A dark silhouette appeared on the scan. "They followed us from the forest," he said. "They want the crystal." Han tapped commands. "We can avoid them," she said. "Plot a course through the nebula belt," Carter nodded. He sent the order. The survey ship changed course, engines flaring. Urena held her children as the ship turned. The stars outside the windows blurred into streaks. The pirates pursued them, their weapons hot on their tail. But the nebula belt loomed ahead, a cloud of gas and dust. Han guided the ship into the mist. Inside the nebula, the ship's sensors struggled. The viewports showed swirling colors of purple and blue. Urena watched her children press their faces against the glass. The girl whispered, "It's like a dream." Urena smiled and kissed her forehead. "It is beautiful," she said. The pirates entered the nebula too. Suddenly their ship stalled. Han frowned. Their engines can't handle the pressure, she said. They are stuck, Carter breathed out. Good, he said. We will move on. The survey ship glided. Through the clouds, Urena led her children to the bridge. Carter showed them the holomap of nearby systems. We will visit the next vault here, he said, pointing to a small moon. The children waved, excited by the stars and moons on the display. Han plotted the jump coordinates. The engine room glowed with power as the hyperdrive engaged. Lights pulsed along the corridors. The children held each other's hands, their small bodies trembling with excitement. Urena knelt and whispered, "We are safe now, my loves." In the engine room, engineers checked the hyperdrive's core. They ran scans on the crystal data to see if any hidden threats lay within. One engineer looked at Urena. "Your archive is clean," he said. "Just knowledge." Urena nodded with relief. The hyperdrive activated. The ship shuddered, and the stars vanished into a white flash. Moments later, the display showed a nearby system with a single moon orbiting a blue planet. Han announced, "We have arrived." The ship dropped back into real space. On the bridge, Carter turned to Urena. "Thank you for guiding us," he said. Urena smiled. "It is my duty," she replied. Her children peeked from behind her, their eyes full of wonder. Carter waved them forward. "Come see," he said. They stepped up to the holomap, tracing the path their ship had taken. As the ship approached the moon, Urena felt a familiar stirring in her heart. She remembered her father's words, "Knowledge can save or destroy." She placed a hand on the crystal case. It glowed softly. She knew this vault held answers to a peaceful future. She looked at her children and whispered, "Let us find hope." The survey ship's landing ramp extended toward the moon's dusty surface. Urena took her children's hands and followed Carter and Han down the ramp. The red dust of the moon swirled around their boots. The next chapter of their journey had begun, and with it, the promise of new discoveries and a bond stronger than any war. Urena woke to the gentle sway of the ship as it slid into orbit around the third vault moon. She rubbed sleep from her eyes and gathered her children in her arms. The girl yawned and the boy stretched, then they clung to their mother's tunic. Captain Carter appeared in the corridor, his uniform crisp against the dim light. "We're ready for you," he said softly. Han and two engineers stood behind him, carrying scanning gear and portable lights. They rowed the small shuttle down to the moon's surface. The landing pad lay in a shallow crater, its metal plates half buried by dust. As the shuttle doors opened, the group stepped onto cracked stone. The air tasted of metal and ancient dust. Urena led her children forward. They held hands tightly, trusting her steps. The engineers activated their scanners. Soft beeps echoed across the crater. Han studied her display. "The vault entrance is nearby," she said. "Sensors pick up sealed doors under that ridge." She pointed to a low hill rimmed with jagged rocks. The group clambered up together. The children climbed beside Urena, their small boots kicking. Up dust. At the ridge's crest, they saw a wide slab of stone half hidden in the hill's side. Symbols carved into the stone glowed faintly green. Urena's heart beat faster. She traced the lines with her fingertip. "This is the symbol of unity," she said. "It calls those who seek peace." She spoke a word in her tongue. The symbols pulsed brighter. With a rumble, the stone slid aside, revealing a tunnel yawning into darkness. Han smiled. "Good work," she said. She switched on her light and motioned them inside. The engineers followed, lights bobbing ahead like fireflies. Carter carried a small lamp under his arm. Urena held her daughter's hand and lifted her son onto her hip. The children's eyes were wide with wonder. They moved down the tunnel. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the floor was slick with moss. The walls were smooth metal, inscribed with fine patterns. The children reached out to touch the walls, then drew back at its cold touch. Urena encouraged them. "Our ancestors made this," she whispered. "They built it for the future." Deeper inside, they reached a vault door of polished alloy. No handles appeared, only the same Unity symbol at its center. Han scanned the perimeter. No obvious lock, she said. I think it responds to thought. She turned to Urena. Can you open it? Urena closed her eyes and placed her hand over the symbol. She took a deep breath and thought of her children, her hopes for their future. The symbol glowed and the door sighed open. Inside lay a circular chamber lit by soft white light. Panels of crystal hung from the walls, each inscribed with swirling patterns. At the center stood a pedestal with a crystalline orb the size of a child's head. The orb floated above the pedestal. Rotating slowly, its light cast dancing shapes across the chamber. The engineers gasped. Han stepped forward. This is a knowledge orb, she said. It contains teachings, stories, and art. She carefully set her lamp near the pedestal. Carter knelt beside it and studied its glow. Urena's daughter whispered, It's beautiful. Her son added, Can we touch it? Urena kneeled beside them. We must be careful, she said. The orb shares only what we ask. She touched the pedestal and spoke a gentle word in her tongue. The orb's glow changed to a soft blue. Symbols and shapes appeared in the air like holograms, scenes of ancient ceremonies, of artists and poets, of scholars teaching children. The children watched in awe. The girl reached out, and a small image of a musical instrument floated into her hand. It played a gentle note. The boy stepped forward, and the image faded as quickly as it came. Urena gathered them close. This vault teaches art, she said. It shows us that beauty can exist even in dark times. Han took out a secure case. We need to record this, she said. She placed sensors around the orb and began capturing its data. The engineers assisted, plugging cables into the pedestal. Carter stayed with Urena and her children, offering quiet smiles. He saw the hope in Urena's eyes as she watched her children learn. Suddenly, the ship's AI crackled. Overcome. Warning, hostile vessels detected at perimeter. Carter rose. They found us, he said. Han glanced at her scanner. 2 small fighters, she reported. They cannot enter the tunnel, but they will attack the ship soon. Carter nodded. We have minutes, he said. Han called to the engineers. Secure the orb data and prepare to leave. The engineers worked quickly, removing the pedestal's power link and placing the orb in a protective containment unit. Urena lifted her daughter from the floor and hugged her. The boy clutched his mother's leg. They moved toward the entrance. Han sealed the vault door behind them. The tunnel rumbled shut, leaving only silence. Outside, the fighters blasted. The landing pad with stun rounds, dust, and sparks flew. Carter shielded Urena and the children behind a low rock. Han returned fire with the shuttle's mounted turret, driving the fighters back. The shuttle's ramp extended. Carter lifted the containment unit and carried it inside. Urena led her children up the ramp and into safety. Han slammed the doors shut. The fighters withdrew at the edge of the crater, unable to follow. The shuttle rose quickly into orbit as the fighters returned to their mothership. Inside, Han checked the orb's readings. Data secure, she said. Carter exhaled. We owe you again, he told Urena. She shook her head gently. I only protect my family, she said. Her daughter peeked from Urena's arms. We saw stories, she said. I want to learn. More, Carter smiled. There is more ahead, he said. Han plotted their next course. Urena looked at her children and placed a hand on her son's shoulder. We will give these lessons to others, she said. And we will make a future brighter. The shuttle's engines hummed, and the orb glowed softly in its case. Together, they set course for the next vault, hope shining brighter than any weapon. Yarina woke as the ship slipped into orbit over the fourth vault planet. She stretched and gathered her children close. The girl pointed at the window. Look, Mama, she said. The rings are so bright. Urena smiled and kissed her daughter's head. The boy pressed his face to the glass, eyes full of wonder. Captain Carter met them at the airlock. Han and 2 engineers stood behind him, checking gear. Ready when you are, Carter said. Urena nodded and led her children down the ramp. The planet's rings cast pale light across the landing pad. The air tasted faintly of ice and stone. The team boarded the small shuttle. Carter sat at the controls. Han ran final checks on the scanners. The engines hummed as they left the ship. Urena held her children on either side. They touched her hands for courage. The shuttle glided toward a ringed world, then broke through the thin atmosphere. Outside, fields of silver crystals stretched to jagged mountains. The crystals caught the ring light and sparkled like a million stars. The children gasped. The girl whispered, "It is magic." Urena squeezed her hand. "It is nature's art," she said. The shuttle landed near a crystal forest. Tall spires of ice and mineral rose around them. The wind sang as it passed through. Han activated the scanner. Soft beeps echoed. "Vault entrance below," she said. "Sensors spot a sealed arch at the base of that hill." She pointed to a slope of crystal shards. The group walked carefully. The children balanced on small outcrops, reaching to touch the glittering walls. Urena reminded them, "Be gentle." The boy nodded and softly stroked a crystal. It hummed under Hi's fingers. He smiled in delight. The hill's base, they found an archway carved from the same crystals. Intricate patterns glowed in pale blue. Urena placed her hand on the arch. She spoke a word in her tongue. The arch shimmered and formed a doorway. Frost melted as it slid open. Inside, the tunnel was cool and bright. Walls of clear crystal formed natural corridors. Light filtered through to reveal a chamber at the end. Within lay a spiral platform winding upward around a central column. At the top sat a floating crystal shard, glowing with soft light. Han checked her display. "This is a memory beacon," she said. "It holds recordings of worlds lost to war." Carter stepped forward. "We must be quick. Our scanners show small ships approaching." Urena guided her children behind a low wall. The boy clutched her tunic. "I am scared," he whispered. She knelt and hugged him. "I am with you," she said. "We are safe." Carter and Han moved to the platform. "Engineer set up a data link?" Carter reached out and touched the floating shard. It glowed stronger and images appeared, burning cities, fleeing refugees, then scenes of rebuilding and peace. The shard projected sounds, laughter of children, music of distant planets. Han connected the data link. The shard pulsed as information transferred. Engineers worked quickly. The ripple of images filled the chamber. Urena watched her children's faces light with hope. The girl whispered, "They found joy again." Urena nodded. "They did," she said. Suddenly, the ship's AI crackled. Hostile ships entering atmosphere. Carter tapped his wrist. "Come." "Activate shield bubble," he ordered. Engineers flicked switches. A dome of light formed around the tunnel entrance. Outside, fighters swooped low, unable to enter the chamber. Han checked her scanner. "They will blast the arch," she said. Carter frowned. "We have seconds," Han called to engineers. "Secure the beacon link and move." They detached the shard from its column and placed it in a padded case. Carter took the case and nodded to Urena. "It is time," he said. Urena scooped up her daughter and lifted her son. They followed Carter and Han out of the chamber. The arch shimmered closed as they passed. Engineers sealed the outside door behind them. The sound of blaster fire rattled against crystal walls. They rushed back to the shuttle. Carter carried the case. Urena held her children. Han manned the turret at the back. The shuttle lifted just as the fighters fired. Beams struck the crystal hill, cracking shards and sending sparks flying. The shuttle rose above the chaos. Inside, Han watched the viewports. The fighters gave chase, but the shuttle's engines roared. Carter piloted toward open space. The children clung to Urena, eyes wide but safe. Urena kissed each child's forehead. "We did it," she whispered. Han checked the beacon data. "Recording complete," she said. "We have history saved." Carter exhaled. "Thanks to you, Urena," he said. She shook her head. "It is my gift," she replied. "For my children." The girl leaned against her mother. The boy yawned and closed his eyes. The shuttle docked with the survey ship. Engineers carried the case to the lab. Han secured it in the database vault. Carter led Urena and her children to the observation deck. They watched the crystal world shrink behind them. Yarina held her children close. She looked at Carter and Han. "We have 3 more vaults," she said. Carter smiled. "And with them we will build hope." The ship's engines hummed as it jumped to the next system. Urena tucked her children in for rest. She whispered, "Sleep now, my stars. Tomorrow we learn more." The ship's lights dimmed, and hope glowed brighter than any crystal. Yarina woke before dawn, the soft hum of the ship's engines echoing through the corridor. She rubbed her eyes and gathered her children close. Today they would reach the final vault. The girl tightened her grip on her mother's hand. The boy yawned and leaned against Urena's side. Captain Carter waited at the hatch, his face calm in the dim light. Han and 2 engineers stood behind him, scanning their gear one last time. They boarded the shuttle and settled into their seats. Carter checked the navigation display. "We'll arrive at the vault moon in 30 minutes, he said. Urena nodded. She held her children close, feeling their small hearts beating against hers. She whispered to them, "We are nearly home." Outside, the shuttle slipped through black space and into orbit around a rocky moon. Its surface was pockmarked with ancient craters. No light broke through thick clouds of dust. The shuttle glided down and landed on a flat plain. Dust swirled as the engines cut power. Urena stepped onto the surface, the children following closely. Han activated her scanner. "Vault entrance is nearby," she said. "Sensors detect a sealed chamber under that crater." She pointed to a large depression in the ground. They climbed to the crater's rim. The view inside was dark and silent. At its center lay a circular hatch of rusted metal. Symbols faint in the dim light marked its edges. Urena approached and traced the symbols with her finger. She spoke a word in her tongue. The symbols glowed softly and the hatch slid aside with a groan. A shaft descended into darkness. Han turned on her light and led the way. Engineers set up portable lamps. Carter held the children's hands as they entered the shaft. The tunnel was deep and narrow. Dust fell from its high ceiling with each step. Urena carried her son on her hip and guided her daughter with her free hand. Han checked her scanner. "We are approaching the main chamber," she said. The air grew colder and the lamps revealed walls carved with flowing lines like water. They entered a vast room lit by pale lanterns built into the walls. At its center stood a pedestal of black stone. Atop it hovered a translucent sphere swirling with dark clouds. Urena felt a shiver. This was the final vault, holding the hardest lessons of war and peace. Carter stepped forward. "This is the sorrow sphere," he said softly. "It holds memories of our darkest hours, so we learn not to repeat them." Han set up a data link. Engineers connected cables from the sphere to their portable drives. Carter watched the sphere's clouds swirl. Yarina knelt beside the pedestal. She placed her hand near the sphere without touching it. She closed her eyes and spoke in her language. The sphere responded, its surface rippling and revealing images in light above it, battlefields, broken cities, families torn apart, then scenes of healing, rebuilding, and unity. The children watched, eyes wide. The girl reached out, but a gentle barrier kept her hand back. Urena whispered, "It shows sorrow, so we remember compassion." The boy touched Urena's tunic. "I feel sad," he said. Urena held him. "It is okay to feel," she said. "We must learn and not forget." Han and the engineers recorded the data. Carter stood guard near the entrance as their scanners detected small vessels approaching overhead. He tapped his wrist. "Prepare defenses," he ordered. Engineers flicked switches and a shield dome formed around the chamber. Outside, fighters hovered at the crater's rim. They fired stun blasts at the shield. Sparks danced on the barrier's surface. Carter watched the display. "They want the sphere," he said, "but they cannot reach us here." Inside, the sphere's images shifted to show children playing among ruins, neighbors sharing food, songs sung under starlit skies. Urena smiled through tears. The children leaned against her. The girl whispered, "I want the happy part." The son nodded. Urena nodded. "We will carry hope with sorrow," she said. Han finished the data transfer. We have everything, she said. Engineers disconnected the cables. Carter signaled to Han. Seal the sphere, he said. Han spoke the lock command. The sphere's image faded and the barrier around it glowed. Engineers placed it in a containment unit lined with energy dampers. As they prepared to leave, the shield dome held firm against repeated blasts. Han called to Carter. We can go now. Carter led Urena and the children back along the tunnel. The lamps flickered as dust settled. At the hatch, Urena spoke the closing word. The hatch slid shut, leaving silent rock behind. They climbed into the shuttle. Carter lifted the containment unit. Urena held her children. Han secured the data drives. The shuttle rose through the dusty clouds. Outside, the fighters tried to follow, but their engines sputtered in the storm of dust. They broke off pursuit. Inside, Urena kissed her children's heads. We did it, she said. We have all the knowledge now. The girl hugged Urena's leg. I learned to remember, she said. The boy nodded. And be kind, he added. Back aboard the survey ship, engineers moved the spheres and orbs into the archives. Han uploaded the data to the ship's database. Carter and Urena watched the holographic display fill with images, the war engine, the art vault, the sorrow sphere, and more. Each symbol on the display represented a lesson. Carter turned to Urena. You guided us, he said. You saved these gifts. Urena shook her head. I did it for my children, she replied. She held them both close. The children looked up, eyes bright with new understanding. On the observation deck, the ship set course for home. The stars stretched before them like silver threads. Urena looked at her children and whispered, We will share these lessons with others. Carter joined them. Our worlds will be stronger, he said. As the survey ship slipped into hyperspace, Urena stood with her children at the viewport. She whispered a final word of thanks to the vaults and to the memories they carried. Beyond the hurt and sorrow, she felt hope and knew that with compassion and knowledge, two worlds could grow together in peace.